buttermilk crispy chicken? Let's find out.
It's probably the best sandwich I've ever had.
It's super crispy, but it's also really juicy.
So would you guys come back?
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, here's our card. The location is on the back. It's McDonald's? What? What?
Oh, get out
No way.
Wait, seriously?
Try some buttermilk crispy chicken. It's right around the corner at McDonald's. Buttermilk.
This is Brad Atwell back on WCLU Sports with Ask the Coach with Coach Jeff Griffith of the Barren County Trojans. If you would like to check out our podcast after the show is aired, you can listen to that on WCLU at watchwclu.com or just go to WCLU Radio and click on the video link. And we want to thank McDonald's of Glasgow for sponsoring McDonald's Ask the Coach podcast with Game Film. And Coach, we've talked about what our offense was able to do. We've talked about some bright spots there. We've talked about some bright spots in our defense. Just as we look over those stats, we looked earlier at our offensive stats, but when you go down the list and look, we had a lot of guys defensively that come up and made some big plays for us last night. And there's a lot of times we talk about guys on the radio of being those guys that made the tackles or something else, but there's a reason those guys are able to make a tackle, and that starts up front, across the front. When those guys are doing their job up front, that's what sets up for these linebackers to come in and have a big night, or to come in and to have 8 or 10 tackles. It's because of what happens up front. When a running back has a good night and he has 60 to 100 yards, it's because of what takes place up front. When you have a quarterback that can throw the football, it all starts up front. And so I want to give a shout out to our offensive and defensive linemen today, because some of those guys they never get any glory, but if it wasn't for them, it's never going to get started.
Well, that's very true. Games are won on both sides of the ball up front, and the most of the time those guys don't get a lot of notoriety, but you're right. I mean, we've got some guys up front that are doing a great job on both sides of the football, and I thought defensively last night, and he's been consistent all year, but Jordan Hill, I thought, played an outstanding football game last night in terms of what they were doing offensively and him just doing his job, and he did a really good job. Brody Bricker inside, and Stonehammer played really well up front, and it's one of those games where it's a dirty job in there when you're playing a running team like Allen is, and they're big up front and physical, and my goodness, their center may be the biggest human being I've ever seen, and we did a good job of trying to get on the move with him and doing some things. And like I said, I thought if we had 50 snaps in the game last night, we played pretty decent for 45 of them. But we've got to clean up those other 5, and I think we can be pretty good defensively. And I thought linebacker-wise, I thought Mason Perkins probably played his best game as a linebacker of the season, and he really did a good job of getting downhill on their run game and doing a good job. And Heston Harrison as well, and those guys, we're getting better. I know we're not where we want to be. We're probably not where we should be. But in terms of learning new schemes and what we're doing defensively and even offensively, but especially on defense and the style of play that we're going to be on defense, we're making progress there, and we just got to continue to work. And we got one more tune-up, and then we'll see where we are with our district schedule.
When we look at the defensively, of course, like you said, Mason definitely played the best game that he's played all year at that linebacker spot, and has helped us tremendously on the offensive side of the ball as well. But when you look at Mason last night with 10 tackles and about 3 assists there, that he came in and if he hadn't helped, it wasn't going to happen. So that was his best game so far the year as far as tackling and going to the football. And, we saw that out of Mason a couple of years ago when he first came in, started playing that linebacker spot. I mean, he was definitely a linebacker. There was no doubt about it. And, then we lost him to injury, and you could tell who our leader had been on the field up until that point. And so he's coming back off of that injury this year, and I think it's just taking him 2 or 3 games to get comfortable on that knee to think, boy, that it's going to work now. So it was good to see him have that kind of game last night.
It was, and and he is a guy, like you said, he's coming off his ACL reconstruction, and basically I think it was about this week last year that he hurt it. So he's made tremendous progress and has come back really quick. And of course, a lot of people will tell you that coming back from something like that is much more mental, is as much mental as it is physical. And I really think last night he played probably the best game he's played to start the year here, and he's getting comfortable in what we're doing, and he did a really good job. I thought Cody Blakely did a good job at outside linebacker as well. We did a lot of stuff with him in terms of bringing him, in a stunt every now and then, and he did a good job and was flying around and was physical. And those guys are doing a good job. They're learning the way I want to call defense and what we want to do, and we're getting a little better at it and learning landmarks and aiming points defensively on what we want to do. And it's a work in progress. Again, we got to do a better job on about 5 snaps a game. If we can clean those up, then we've got a chance.
Well, Coach, looking forward to next week. We travel down to Warren East to take on the Raiders there on their home field at 7 o'clock next week. And what I've seen of Warren East, they've got some speed, but they've been beat up too so far this year, and their record is not that good. But I still think we're going to see a good football team. Well,
they're getting better every week, and Justin Chaffin, their head coach, I worked with him for 6 or 8 years at Bowling Green, and I know what kind of football coach he is. They're an extremely young football team. They start about 7 or 8 sophomores on defense, and of course this is the 5th game of the year, so they're getting better every game in a new scheme, and they're going through a lot of the same things that we are in terms of learning a new scheme on both sides of the football. But they're really young, and but in saying that, probably the best running back in this part of the state is a sophomore in Willie Reynolds, and he's been banged up a little, and I think that's hurting. I think you look at their scores and the last couple of weeks they're starting to get a little better, and we're going to go down there and it's going to be a hornet's nest. And the thing is, we've got to if we'll do a good job of tackling in space, I like our chances. But if we let their athletes, particularly Willie Reynolds, get in the open field, we're not going to get him down. I'm just going to tell you, he's that kind of player, and he's a good player, and we've got to make sure we know where he is at all times.
One kid last night, I want to go back to kind of the individual thing, looking forward to Warren East, and we know. But I tell you, a kid that came in last night and I thought did great for us was Blaine Rigsby on special teams. Blaine's a young kid, came in and had a couple returns. He's not scared to run the football. The first time he caught it, I thought, Blaine, where are you going? And he come off of that edge, and I tell you, he turned it upfield and got us some yards. And, of course, we got called back on a holding call, and then made 2 big tackles on special teams last night. So it's good to see these young guys that get an opportunity to play because of some injuries and come in and say, hey, not only do I want to play, I can play.
Well, Blaine has done a really good job going all the way back to our, when we started in July, and he's a guy that he's a guy that I have no problem with at all putting him in the game, and he keeps getting a little better every week, and is probably a guy at this point that deserves to be playing a little more. I mean, he's a guy that he's not real big, but I tell you what, he does his flying squirrel tackle on people, and of course we all laugh at it, but man, he gets after people, and as you said last night, he did a great job in our return game on the kickoff return, and turns the corner right there, and he's athletic and has done a good job with that. And we hope to see a lot more of Blaine here in the coming weeks, because he certainly earned the right to get to play more.
Of course, one of the couple of reasons Blaine was on the field last night, Max Pena has been in there at that return spot for some, and on special teams. Of course, Max out with a knee as well, and of course Gibson Lowe having out for an injury as well. So that opens up. We have to get a little deeper. And what the good thing about it is, Max has done well, Gibson has done well, but it's good to be able to see these guys that come in that take that spot where they went out and comes in and fills that up. So it's great to see.
Well, we were missing, J.J. Walters that was out last night too. So, there's another guy that's played some special teams for us as a freshman and can run and is athletic. So, everybody's, hitting with little injuries that time of year where you start getting beat up a little bit, and it's just the next guy up. And, of course, Blaine came in and did a good job last night. And that's what we got to have. It's the next guy up mentality, and that's what we've got to have for us to be successful.
All right, Coach. Well, I'm going to just look over. I'm going to recap the stats. Offensive side of the ball, Ellis Winiger, 13 for 49 rushing, caught 3 passes for 16 yards. Andrew Hughes rushed the ball 11 times for 22 yards, and with one of those a touchdown. Andrew, he threw the football last night 11 times for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. Stanton rushed the football 4 times for 8 yards. And 2 catches for 7. Made 1 rush for 1 yard, 3 catches for 101 yards with a touchdown. Ty Hay 2 catches for 69 yards. Mason Perkins 1 catch for 2 yards with a touchdown. And then defensively, Mason Perkins led us last night with 10 tackles. Zach Sneed with 9. Stone Hammer with 7. Jordan Hill with 6. Zach New with 5. Grant Bowen with 3. Matthew Bellamy with 3. Blaine Rigsby with 2. Jared Hurt with 1, Heston Harrison with 1, Ellis Winiger with 1, and Chase Farley with 1. So, it's good to see that everybody on the field is getting involved. And just because a kid's name wasn't mentioned here, just like you said, somebody has to fill a hole somewhere where they're going to turn that ball back in or something defensively that's going to make that happen. So, glad to see guys, getting involved last night. Folks, come on out next Friday night down to Warren East as we take on the Warren East Raiders at 7 o'clock. And it's always a good atmosphere there at Warren East. They've got a nice place to play football. And so come on out and join us next week. Coach, we appreciate you being with us this morning. And thank you for taking the time to get up early and come out and be a part of Ask the Coach.
Thanks, Brad.
Folks, come back and join us next week after we'll recap the game with Warren East Raiders. And again, after the show today, if you want to go online at watchwcou.com or go to wcouradio.com and click on the video link, you can watch McDonald's Ask the Coach podcast with game film and listen as I talk with Coach Jeff Griffith and watch the game last night from the 20-19 loss of a hard-fought game with the Allen County Patriots. Until next week, folks, you have a great week, and join us at Warren East next Friday night.